All right. Hello, all you sports fans out there in podcast land, and welcome once again to another edition of Babbling Brooks, your new favorite podcast, where I, your host Brooks, try to bring you some of today's sports news with just a little twist of my point of view. Hope you're all having a great week so far. It was pretty good. Not feeling the best, so it may not be like my most high energy episode. I don't know if I'm coming down with something. I'm just kind of tired. Probably didn't help getting rained on when I was walking to work on Thursday. Got like totally drenched. I think I can beat this storm to work, and I almost did. I was not too far away, but the downpour started. There was like no cover. Then it didn't help that I was standing by a road that was flooding, and I got drenched. And also, but this is the concert I went to Wednesday where I was on my feet. Usually concerts will leave me a little sore. Sometimes with stuff like that combining. But I don't feel my best, so not at my best right now. But I'm going to try my best to give y'all my best, whatever that means. Anyway, congratulations, Jaylen Brown, the Atlanta area native, getting paid. The largest contract in NBA history, like $304 million extension. There were a lot of talks that he could be on the move potentially, because it seemed like they were taking a second to work it out. And good for him. I wouldn't have minded seeing him in Atlanta, because that did seem like a potential possibility if there wasn't an extension reached. Because then after this upcoming season, he could be a free agent, and hey, maybe he'd want to come home. But he will not be a free agent until pretty much the next decade. At this point, it's got like 28, 29, I think is when this contract goes through. So good for him. Also, congratulations, even more relevant for this podcast, seeing as he was a former Atlanta Brave and one of the first baseball players I really remember watching and getting excited about back in the 90s. Fred McGriff, a.k.a. Crime Dog, taking a bite out of the Hall of Fame, finally going in. After just not getting a chance to go in on the original ballot, getting voted in by the players. 10 years on the writers' ballot. And I don't understand. A lot of the guys that are on this list with him are players who had, performance enhancement issues. Like Alex Rodriguez and Manny Ramirez. Guys like that. Another Brave, and on there for a different reason. I saw Andrew Jones. I think he hopefully can make it in next year. But I think that might have been the other. Yeah, I don't think he wasn't on the whole thing. But yeah, Fred McGriff was off the writer's ballot. So, crazy to me, because, I was really watching an interview with Chipper Jones. It was really interesting him talking about, it was man, I can't believe it took so long, and he was just super consistent. You could pretty much count on him to hit pretty much 30 homers, get you 100 RBIs every year. Braves got him in a trade in 93, helped them win the pennant that year, even though they were 10 games back. But sort of like last year, when they won the pennant, when you fight to come back to win the division like that, it can affect you when it comes to the playoffs. That was the year, of course, that the Phillies beat us on the way to losing to the Blue Jays in the World Series, just like last year when the Phillies, as a wild card team, upset us in the playoffs on their way to losing to Dusty Baker and the Houston Astros. So maybe this year we can have a damn good year, because the next full season after that, we won the World Series, 1995. Fred McGriff, big part of that, along with, of course, guys like David Justice, all those dudes. So congratulations, Fred McGriff. I was kind of surprised he hadn't gone in yet. 493 career home runs. Pretty damn close to 500. That's some elite company. And yeah, he was just a lot of fun. And also, if you look at the picture of him and Scott Rowland, I feel like you would guess wrong if you knew nothing else when you're going by that picture to guess the age. Fred McGriff looks 10 years younger than Scott Rowland, but it's the opposite. Scott Rowland looks old in the picture they took there. Maybe it's just that one picture. Maybe it's just because I have, anti-Philly bias. Because he did, start his career, spend most of his career with the Philadelphia Phillies. So I don't know, But he was a good player. You give him credit for that. Congratulations to him as well. But I'm just not as excited. Speaking about not as excited, before we go into the last two games of that Brewers series, it feels weird doing it with so much separation. And actually, I was wanting to come on Sunday after I got done working, but that was when I sort of really started to feel this. Like the end of that first shift, I'd just been on my feet all day. Just something about it hit me. I think it was the walk home too. Because I live close enough to that job to easily walk to work, but sometimes the hills will get to me because it's like straight up, straight down, straight up. Like it's just, I don't know if you've not been around Atlanta. Atlanta's got a lot of hills, especially like South Atlanta. It's like extra hilly. Not just Hill Street either, though. It's part of all that. But so it hit me Sunday, and I was like, man, I ain't going to do it. But it's been a couple days, and the Braves didn't play yesterday. So it's all good. We'll talk about that. But I want to go in first. The Braves did make a couple of trade acquisitions. Was it like a Pierce? Is it Pierce or Pierce? Yeah, Pierce Johnson traded from the Rockies to the Braves for 2 minor league prospects. There's a couple different pitchers. One was the number 10 prospect, the other number 26. So you hate to lose a number 10 prospect, but, the Braves got a lot of guys in between here and there. And Pierce Johnson is one of the things they need. They need bullpen arms more than anything, especially because another not good development the last couple of days, Jesse Chavez moved over to the 60-day injured list just after he was starting to throw more. So I'm assuming he had some kind of setback or something like that, which sucks, man. Not just for him, for the Braves. He's a very consistent arm. And it just felt like a minor injury at the time. I mean, there was the question at the time whether he would even go to the injured list. And so to see that go from a minimal stay to where he stayed on there, but a 60-day one, I mean, I guess it would depend the day they do it out from. I don't know if you can't, go back too far on that. So he's going to be out for a minute. Honestly, whenever someone goes on the 60-day injured list after the All-Star break, I kind of assume they're done for the season. Maybe not. I mean, he still would have time, even if it goes out from yesterday or whatever. You still would have someone potentially you could put on the postseason roster. But I don't know if you're really going to want to do that with someone that's been hurt for that long, been on the shelf for that long, trying to work them back in mid to late September seems like a bit of a stretch. And also another trade the Braves made for another bullpen arm, Taylor Hearn, getting him from Texas for cash considerations, and he is a left-handed pitcher. And neither one of these guys is wow kind of trades. It's more about just plugging the hole. I was watching, I think it was on the MLB network, and they had a good point. They're they're not going to put these guys in against just anybody. They are going to pick and choose. And that's the great thing about having a lot of bullpen arms. You can kind of do that, move around a little bit, because we do, with Chavez has been out, AJ Minter has been out. But the good news is AJ Minter is working his way back. He will be making a rehab appearance today for Gwinnett. So keep an eye on that. Maybe we can get AJ back in the next week or so. Because the good thing about the relievers, you usually can do less relief appearances because you don't need to build up the pitch count. Whereas Max Fried is trying to build up his pitch count so he can go feel like he can go a full game. Rehab appearances, that's part of it. Also just working out the kinks. So unless he looks extra kinky, they might, give him a little more time. But I wouldn't expect more than 2 for AJ Minter. And sometimes those relievers, especially a veteran like AJ, you're okay, 1, that's good enough. Especially because he's not your closer, he's your setup guy. But a very, very essential piece in any bullpen, especially this Braves bullpen. Because we've got some other guys that are good, but AJ, having him as the shutdown guy, and then with Raisel Iglesias to do the final shutdown. And, of course, Kirby Yates has done decent and, got to save the other day. So he's gotten better as the year goes on. But in the other move, the Braves, let's go on Pierce Johnson a little bit more because his number's not great, or neither him or Taylor, but like I said, they're going to pick and choose when they put him in. And Pierce Johnson's been pitching most of his games at Coors Field, and y'all know that's mile-high territory. So the ball just soars out there sometimes. You look at his non-Coors ERA, it's a little more normal. And it's not like he's going to be pitching a lot of big innings. These are guys that are going to be used for the occasional middle relief. So they're not going to be, starting games, obviously. They're not going to be closing games. They're not even going to be setting up the closer unless some things really go bad. These are guys that are pretty much going to be your middle average inning relievers. So nothing special, but we definitely needed bullpen depth. You need options there, and at least one of them we can send down to AAA if we need to go back and forth. So that's good to have too, because this Braves team definitely just stays making roster moves. Just it seems like moving guys back and forth. Another guy, of course, the had was it Lucas Luetge going down in response to these moves. Derek Rodriguez going back down to AAA in response to these moves. And now the big surprise to me and most people, Michael Soroka back to AAA. After the Braves said they didn't want to yo-yo him, bringing him back and forth between AAA and the big club. They have done that a lot this year. And this time it seems to make a little less sense because it was after a decent start. He had like one bad inning, but didn't feel like it was really necessary to get, like it was that bad. But when they claimed Yonny Chirinos off of waivers from the Tampa Bay Rays, the corresponding move was to send Soroka down. And it just seems odd because Chirinos he's 4-0, 4-0 as a starter, but he's got 4 losses in some relief appearances. He's got slightly more strikeouts than Soroka, but he's pitched like 30 more innings, and he does have a slightly lower ERA, but just like 1 point. He's in the 4s, Soroka's in the 5s. So it's hard to tell what's going on with this. Is this potentially, some people say, it could mean maybe Soroka gets moved, which I don't like after all this time, helping him come back to move on from, I'm not particularly fond of. So hopefully that's not true. Maybe it's just they, want to just trying to test things out. Because it seems like this is the time to test things out and try to work out some of the kinks. Like maybe Soroka, seems like it would have been better for him to do that with the big club because he's not been pitching so bad. He's just like giving games away. He's still working his way back to his best. And I guess they decided that it would be better to do that in AAA. I still believe we'll see him some more. I mean, a lot of that, I guess, could depend on Max Fried. He has his, what many believe will be his final rehab start in Gwinnett tomorrow night. So we can get him back in the rotation. And you got him, Charlie, Spencer, and Bryce. There's only really one more spot. So Yonny looks like he's going to be that guy now. And we'll see how that works. Like, I don't know. Like, he seems okay. But when you've already got these other guys, it seems like maybe they could be just as good. At worst, like in Soroka, I think most of his high ERA numbers has come from a couple bad starts early on. So we'll see what becomes of. Maybe Alex, it seems like he or someone in the scouting department that relayed it to Alex saw something they liked in Yonny Chirinos, and maybe there was something they didn't like about Soroka, or maybe they're putting him off till next year. That is always a possibility. Maybe they would rather see what he can do in Gwinnett, keep getting better. Maybe, this year, he hadn't looked the same overall as he did when he came up and made the All-Star team as a rookie a couple years ago. But hey, man, you can't always, it takes a lot. That's tough to work its way back from the 2 Achilles injuries like that. I think he's done a pretty damn good job, and I think he's going to keep getting better. So hopefully this is not the last we have seen of him in an Atlanta Brave uniform, and I do not believe that it is. Having said all that, let's go into the last 2 games of this Brewers series up there in Millwauke, formerly the home of the Braves. And it's kind of a neat little thing. In these 2 games, there's 4 MLB debuts. 3 of them by the Braves, and 3 of the total coming in the first game. The star of this one, the Braves end up losing this game to the Brewers after winning the opener. They lose the middle game 4-3. Still, spoiler alert, they won on Sunday, so they still won the series, winning their first series since the All-Star break after that 11 straight series wins going into the All-Star break. And Brewers rookie Sal Frelick had one hell of a Major League debut. Kid in his first career game goes 3 for 3, 2 RBI, and a run. And not just that, he made 2 incredible catches to rob at least extra base hits from the Braves and potentially a run. So he's basically the reason they won this game. scores the tying run, drives in the winning run. It's like, what a game for the kid. What a way to start your Major League Baseball career. How about doing it to someone else, though? Kid, come on. Actually, let me look and make sure. The thing I said about his stats was right. He drove in the winning, what ended up being the winning run on a sacrifice fly in the 8th inning that knocked in Willie Adames. I finally got his name right. I keep wanting to say Adams. It looks so much like an Adams, just with an extra E. And he also drove in a run in the 6th inning, an RBI single. And in the 6th inning, also in the 6th inning, driven in. After that, that was the tying run, yeah. I thought there was one more where his run scored. No, he scored his run on a 2-ring sacrifice fly in the 5th. Sorry. Game is off a little bit today, but still, this was a fun game to watch. The back and forth battle. It's one of those games that you don't mind losing. Because in baseball, you literally cannot win them all. Like, it's not happening. No one's ever going to come close. Because you have 162 games in the season. But this was a pretty damn good game. Of course, someone else making their debut for the Braves. Allan Winans had a pretty solid debut. Of course, now he is back in Gwinnett, just like everybody else after all these moves. But actually, he was sent back for another guy who made his Major League debut in the 2nd game, Daysbel Hernandez. But Allan Winans looked pretty good. Before the 5th, he had only allowed 2 hits. That 2-run 5th inning kind of flubbing his plans to get a win in his first start. Went 4 and a third innings, 5 hits, 2 runs. Both of them earned, but I really like his walk to K ratio. Only 1 walk compared to 5 strikeouts. So good job for him. Just got in a little bit of trouble there in the 5th inning, giving up the sac fly, RBI, and RBI single to Perkins. So, he had a 3-run lead going into that inning, man. The Braves were off to a nice start after Austin Riley continuing his home run streak, which ended up being the end of it. 5 games is still a pretty damn good home run streak. And then that was a 3-run shot. And that was all the runs the Braves were able to score in this one. So it's kind of disappointing. It's kind of cool. 3rd inning, 3-run homer, but then you just don't do anything else. The Brewers bullpen has been really damn good. They had a 29-inning scoreless streak that the Braves broke in the final game of this series. So this series is still in the middle of it. So they got a damn good bullpen. There's no denying that. Especially the way Devin Williams, the way he can just shut you down at the end of the game. He's got 25 saves on the season. Got that one here. Struck out 3 guys. Did walk a couple guys. Gave up a hit. Ozzie Albies had a chance to take the lead and potentially win the game. Top of the 9th inning, Braves last chance. Ozzie Albies strikes out. But don't worry, spoiler alert, he makes up for it a day later. But like I said, great job for Allan Winans, especially considering how, had a shutout going for over 4 innings. That's a pretty good start to a career. So another thing, it seems like the Braves, they've been doing it, but it just seems like even more now because they're trying to make sure that postseason roster. I think that is what they're thinking right now, trying to test guys out, test things out. Could be a combination of seeing what kind of trade value you can get for some of these young arms if you feel like you can upgrade at some position. There have been rumors the Braves are interested in bringing Alan Duvall back for a 3rd time with the Braves, which would be cool, especially with how Eddie Rosario has been kind of back and forth. Marcell Ozuna, after having an incredible May, a great June, July, kind of been a little bit of a struggle. The last month, he's hitting 145. And if you look at the 2 weeks and the 1 week breakdown, it just gets worse as you get to the more recent. The last couple of weeks, he's hitting .045. So looking more like he did in April a little bit. So is this just things kind of catching up with him where he was overperforming himself a little bit? Or is it just baseball and he's just having a little bit of a slump? And, can they wait for him to break out of it? So that'll be a thing. And the rumor is the Red Sox would want like a solid young arm. So they're trying to show some value in these guys. Allan Winans, we've had Dylan Dodd, we've had Jared Schuster at different points in the year. But now it seems like more of a purpose. It's either trying to show some trade value, see what you have to make it easier to make decisions for next year, expose them to major league hitting earlier, and then send them back to work on some stuff in AAA. I think it's too with just there's been playing around with the roster more than usual for the Braves, moving guys up and down at a more frequent rate. So maybe that's all it is. And a lot of it, too, is just you want to make sure you got all your best options on staff, on the roster, heading into the postseason. So you can have all your available options. But good job for Allan Winans. But Adrian Hauser, not a rookie for the Brewers. So not a debut, but he did tie a career high with 10 strikeouts. So he was mowing them Braves down in this game. And that ends up being kind of the difference because the Braves, man, getting up, that 3-0 lead disappearing and not able to do much about it. Another MLB debut in this one, Forrest Wall. We were wondering when we would see him finally get some action, and that finally happened. It was just like we predicted it. He was a pinch runner for Eddie Rosario in the 9th. Eddie was 2 of 4, so not a terrible game, but he has recently had that hamstring issue, missed a couple games for that. So he's not someone you necessarily trust to be the fastest guy right now. Because, and also you don't want him to push it and then re-injure the hamstring at a very important time of the season. So it seems like a great time to put Forrest Wall in, and boy, was it ever. He immediately stole second, and then he immediately stole third. And ended up getting stranded on the bases with everyone else because the Braves got 2 more guys on. And then Ozzie struck out, like we mentioned before. But, hey, still a nice debut for Forrest Wall. You get back-to-back stolen bases in your first chance. It's like, look, that's somebody trying to make a statement. Trying to say, hey, I know y'all don't expect me to do much, but I can. Like, you put out me, I will run, Forrest, run! And it's a nice piece to have, especially you get down the stretch, get to the postseason. You're like, man, say maybe you're not so fast guy gets on base, and you need somebody fast on there that can steal the base. And the fact that he got 2 just like that's a hell of a start to your career. Not as good as a 3-for-3 Sal Frelick debut, but still a pretty damn impressive game for Forrest Wall. Hopefully we'll see some more of him soon. Also talked about Austin Riley hitting his 22nd homer of the season, 5th straight game. He was 2 of 4 in this one. But like I mentioned before, no more scoring in the 3rd inning. It really felt like a missed opportunity in the 9th. After Forrest Wall gets to 3rd base, you're like, hey man, this seems pretty good. We're only down by a run. Surely we can get this guy who's got himself to 2nd. Got himself to 3rd. Somebody can bring him home. They had Orlando Arcia strikes out. Michael Harrison and Ronald Acuna get on base. So loaded up for Ozzie. This was a rough one for Ozzie. He was 0 of 4. Did score a run. He was on base for the home run earlier. But that struck out was a heavy one, man. It felt like we really needed to do something there. But hey, you can't get it every time. And like I said, we'll talk about it more in a second. But Ozzie makes up for it and then some. Some other notes from this game real quick. Ronald Acuna, 2 of 4. Had his 45th, I have terrible handwriting, 45th stolen base. Matt Harris was 1 of 2. Everybody else, pretty much, that we haven't mentioned yet, was for a reason, because they didn't do so well. Matt Olson, 0 of 3. He actually struck out twice in this game, which he hadn't really been doing very much after doing it kind of often earlier in the year when he at one point was leading the league in strikeouts. Not anymore. Last I checked, he was like 9th. So he's definitely improved on that while he's leading the National League in home runs. So a nice combination. Orlando Arcia, 0 4. Also struck out twice, but Adrian Hauser was just on point. Just tough. Other than that 3-run homer, not really giving up much, at all for the pitching staff of the Brewers. Let's see, Sean Murphy, a rare 0 for 4 game, but hey, it's going to happen. Marcell Ozuna 0 of 4. Seems like that's happening more and more lately. But in his defense, one of those would have definitely been a double, at least. Could have potentially left the park, but probably was going to stay in. But Sal Frelick robbing him of an extra base hit. So that would have helped his average a little bit. And the thing with Ozuna, it's one thing earlier in the year to kind of wait it out. Brian Snitker is known for being very patient, letting players kind of work out some of their troubles. But the farther we get into the year, how long do you really want to wait on Marcell Ozuna to come out this slump? We've already done it once this year, and he paid off big time, like a great, marvelous May for Marcell. And then June pretty decent, fell off a little bit. It feels like the last couple of weeks he is really struggling to get on base, and he's been penciled. He's been the DH. I can't remember the last game he was in the DH. Because at one point it seemed like we were going to do that rotation where we'd have Darno and Murphy playing in some games. One of them at DH, the other at catcher, obviously. And it felt like the May Marcell had took that off the table. Because ever since then, it's pretty much been Marcell. I mean, and he is guaranteed some money, so you can't, even if you get rid of him, you got to pay him. So they're trying not to do that. Because you want to pay somebody, you want to pay them for something they're giving you. But like I said, how long can you really wait for him at this time of the year? I mean, at least a little bit longer. But at a certain point, especially with the trade deadline coming up, and, could you get someone like Adam Duvall? I would say go for it, as long as you're not going to give up too much. I don't know if I'm ready to give up Michael Soroka. But, for a rental, someone that could be a future starter for this team. But at the same time, it's probably what the price would be, a future starter. Someone that could eventually, maybe Allan Winans, Dylan Dodd, some of these guys. But I don't know. But I feel like that's the only other place the Braves really need help is an outfielder / DH to provide a little bit of help, to provide some depth. Because Ozuna, I just don't feel like you can trust him right now, long term. He's, I think he'll come out of that. I don't think he'll keep hitting this bad. But how much will he turn it around? That's the big question. So we'll just have to see what's going to happen with that. I'd like to see him, do, because he keeps he's fun to watch. Seems like a really fun player. But this time, as we get closer, man, because this team, I honestly don't think they give a damn about the division title. They've got that locked up pretty much. I mean, they're 11.5 games over first place. The main thing is not, but you don't want to rest too much on your laurels because, number one, injuries inevitably in any sport are going to happen. So you got to have some depth to prepare for that. And I think that's going to be the key idea of the trade deadline. And they're so set in the infield. I mean, you'd like to have somebody available to play some positions. But you can, Culberson you can bring up if necessary. But I think outfielder / someone that can, hit pretty well as a DH and play some left field if they need them to. But having talked about the loss, hey man, let's talk about the win. The Braves celebrating Fred McGriff's entrance into the Hall of Fame. Even though he's not going in as a Brave because he spent a lot of time in Tampa, some time with the Padres, of course. But like Chipper said, we can put the A on his hat ourselves. And the Braves, let's celebrate with a 4-2 win. Like I said before, getting their first series win post All-Star break. And great to see him get a win. Series wins on the road feel like even better than series wins at home because you got to overcome the crowd against you, being on the road, the other team being more in their comfort zone, especially when it's a team like the Brewers leading their division. And and also in baseball, the strongest home field advantage in any sport because you get the last 3 outs. Period. You get that chance. And the other team does not get a chance to respond if you take care of business. So in this one, Ozzie Albies was disappointed in himself. He did not like striking out with the bases loaded. A potential chance to drive across the go-ahead run. And maybe then some. So Ozzie Albies, this one coming up in the 8th inning. And TCB, baby, taking care of business. Getting his first hit of this series. He had been struggling to break through on that plane. But this game, he doesn't. It's 1 of 3. And damn it, he makes that one count. The top of the 8th inning, 3-run homer, turning this game around. Going into the 8th inning, the Braves were down 2-1. So great job. Ozzie Albies, 407-foot home run. His 23rd of the year, hitting 257 so far. Great year, man. And earlier in the game, all our runs in this game coming on home runs. Travis d'Arnaud started the scoring in the second with a solo shot, his 9th of the year. So the Braves got 2 guys at 9. They're about to have like 10 guys with 10 home runs or more on the year. I think it's like 8 right now. And Travis and I believe Orlando right on the edge of that, man. You have to have 2 catchers in double-digit home runs. And that's just like the luxury the Braves have at catcher. I remember didn't like it at first because I didn't want to see William Contreras go. And, he did not have a good game in this one. He had some other good games, though. But just like the upgrade to have 2 all-star catchers. Because, Contreras made the all-star game last year, but that was mostly as a DH and more about his hitting. But you got to respect both of the last 2 seasons. He has made enormous jumps and growths as a defensive catcher. He could always hit the ball. But it felt like last year coming into the year, he improved a lot. And that's one reason I didn't really like the trade, because I felt like he would keep improving. And that's what happened. He's having another great year. But, man, you can't argue with Sean Murphy and Travis d'Arnaud. Damn, man. You got a good starting catcher when Travis d'Arnaud is the backup. So great job for him. He was 2 of 4 in this one. It's the cool thing about Travis, it just always stays ready. Like he can have, these days off in between. And a lot of guys, that would throw them off. They wouldn't be able to hit so well, maybe. Like your numbers wouldn't be great because they're like just out of rhythm. But the fact he's able to keep that and just have games like this where he hits pretty damn well in between. So 2 of 4. He's hitting 264 on the year. Another thing to note from this game, Bryce Elder had a nice bounce back game, pitched after 2 rough starts, right before and right after the All-Star break. And one theory is that I read somewhere that sometimes people think guys that throw sinker balls need to pitch a little tired because both of his last 2 starts had been on more rest than normal. So he comes out with normal rest. That looks more like the Bryce we saw earlier in the year. Still gave up a couple runs, but that was over 6 innings pitched. 4 hits he gave up. Walked 2, struck out 2. So you don't love the ratio. Gave up the homer. But, 105 pitches. So he lasted in this one looking more like what we've seen from Bryce, which is good because sometimes when somebody's been playing better than you expect, pitching better than you expect, and then they struggle, then you're like, oh, okay, that was a fluke. But not a fluke with Bryce, man. Not one bit. He got a 3.30 ERA for the year. So not as low as it was when he was leading the league, but driving it back down from how much he let it soar those last couple times. Excuse me. And some other thing, of course, the guys that made it possible hold off the team. And how about Ozzie Albies, that home run? It broke what we mentioned before was a 29-inning scoreless streak for their bullpen. So the bullpen's been really damn good. So that makes it even more impressive for Ozzie. But our bullpen did a pretty damn good job in this one. Ben Heller coming on after Ozzie hits that home run. Who got the win in this one for the Braves? A Daysbell. Daysbell Hernandez getting the win for the Braves. He pitched the 7th inning, so he was the pitcher of record when Ozzie hit that home run. And that was his major league debut, the 4th major league debut of this series, 3 for the Braves. And it's a nice start. You get your first win in your first appearance. The kid is 1-0. Gave up 1 hit, but struck out 3 guys in his 1 inning. So kind of impressive, Some people are saying, why would you want to bring in help? And like Alex said, hey, that's only 1 inning. And this team is about depth, man, especially going into the playoff run. It's going to be big. So great job for Daysball getting his first career win. You had Ben Heller take over in the 8th, getting the hold. Gave up a couple hits walked a guy, but getting out of trouble, not allowing any runs, and that is the important thing. You can get guys on base, but as long as they don't come home, they don't really fucking count. That's all, hits don't mean shit. It's nice to get hits, but without runs, they're basically meaningless. Pretty much. Not entirely, because there are ways to nuance with it, but you know what I mean. And then Raisel Iglesias getting the 18th save of the year for him. That's in 20 appearances. Perfect ninth inning, striking out the sides. Like, take that hometown. Take that home crowd. Not his hometown. He's from Cuba, but the home crowd there in Milwaukee. So great job for Raisel doing his thing. Who else was doing their thing in this one? Ronald Acuna Jr., 2 of 4. Stolen base number 46. Also got picked off, but let's not focus on that. He steals way more bases than he doesn't when he gets caught. Well, a nice little combo, man. Put Forrest Wall in again. We have Forrest, Michael, Ronald, and Ozzie. It could be a threat to steal. Ozzie not as much, but he still be surprising people. It's like when they don't expect it. He's like, hey, y'all know I'm fast, right? So you talked about Travis was 2 of 4, that 9th home run. Orlando Arcia, 1 of 3. Michael Harris II, also 1 of 3. And Austin Riley, after that incredible streak that led to him being the National League Player of the Week, finally returns back down to earth, 0 for 4 in this one. Olsen also 0 for 4, and Marcell Ozuna, another 0 for 4 game. Actually, I'm going to look at his stats. Yeah, that's the last time he got a hit was against Arizona when he was 1 of 3. If you look at the last 11 games, Marcell Ozuna has 3 hits. 4 straight games where he's at least over 3. This Milwaukee series, 0 and 9. Arizona, 1 of 10. The Chicago series, 1 and 9. So not so good with Marcell lately. And I feel like the Braves leadership is known for being patient, but as the year goes on, the patience is going to go down a little bit. That's just inevitable because you got less time. You gotta get things right, especially with the trade deadline approaching. You got a week? And I do believe the Braves are going to at least go for some depth. Someone that can play some left field and play some DH. And Adam Duvall fits that better than almost anybody, especially since he's comfortable. Something he doesn't really want to get traded. You can't blame him. He's been traded at the trade deadline a bunch and 2 times to the Braves. So it's like, even if it's going to... I'm sure, though, if he was going to get traded, that's probably where he'd like to go. It'd be the easiest place to find somewhere for your family to live for a couple months because you've already played there and lived there twice. Whereas if, go somewhere brand new, then it's all whatever. So I would assume he's Boston or Atlanta. And we're going to see him this weekend. He's not really in the rotation on the regular to kind of have their outfield set. But it would be a nice little compliment to Eddie Rosario in left field and also at DH with Marcell. But the DH, I guess you worry about less because you do have a catcher that can fill that hole at least occasionally. You're not going to have every day because you want your catchers to have days off. So you don't want to have them DHing all their days when they're not catching. But just nice having all the options. And let's see, speaking of options, the Braves had their former pitcher going against them, Julio Teheran, facing his former team for the first time. He went 6 innings, gave up 3 hits and a run, 5 strikeouts to 0 walks. And all the Brewers runs coming in the 3rd and the 4th. 2 rain, solo home run. And then Frelick, who kind of returned back to life, scores on a sacrifice fly in the 4th. Still doing something, though. It wasn't like he was going to, hit 1,000 for his career, so that was going to happen. And, of course, we already talked about Yonny Chirinos, waivers from Tampa Bay. See how that goes? Not a move where you're like, oh, wow, but somebody saw something they liked. So this, I've gotten to the point where I've learned to kind of trust Alex Anthopoulos and company with the Braves because a lot of times I think they're making a bad move. It ends up being a pretty damn good move. So apparently they see something they like in this guy. Same with the trades. But the trades is one thing because I knew, like, you know, we needed bullpen arms. That was, like, without a doubt. So those, to me, make plenty of sense. With Chirinos, I don't know, but I guess it's the time of year where you got time to, like, figure it out, see how he does. I would assume he'll get a start in the next few days. Probably maybe Soroka's spot in the rotation. Because Soroka can't come back up for like, 15 days unless it's injury related. So maybe he gets at least a start down there in AAA. I don't know. It's an interesting decision. Like, I did not expect him to be sent down because it felt like he was earning a spot in the rotation at least until Max Fried comes back. But they still would only leave them with, 4? Because you have Strider, Morton, Elder, and now Chirinos. Since Soroka went back down, you sent Allan Winans back down. There's a lot of moves. You can't really keep up with them. But we'll see what happens. We do have a series. I'm really sure it's barely a series. I don't understand 2-game series of baseball. I guess that's just the way the schedule works. 162 is not divisible by 3. But just I don't know. See, yeah. At least this time they're not traveling like all the way to Millwauke for a 2-game series and come back home to Atlanta. They did something similar to that not too long ago. Actually, 162 is divisible by 3. 54. Why are we having 2 and 4 game series? Just make every series 3 games. And then every team has 54 series, which I assume they do. The 4 and the 2 like balance off each other, but I don't know. It just seems to me like you just have 3-game series. It just makes more sense. But what do I know? I'm just a fan. But the Braves taking on the Boston Red Sox up there at historic Fenway Park. Starting today at 7. And on the mound for the Braves will be Charlie Morton, looking like a bullpen game for the Red Sox. So a potential game for the Braves offense to make some noise because bullpen games are hard games to win for a team pitching in them. Because you're going to need one of your guys in the bullpen to step up and probably pitch like at least 3 innings. And a lot of times they're not used to doing that. Or if you don't do that, you risk having like your entire bullpen get used in one day, and that can mess you up for the next day or 2. So the Braves got Charlie on the mound one day, and then Spencer Strider on the mound the second game. Take a quick look at the standings before we wrap it up. The Braves, like I mentioned before, are 11.5 games over the Miami Marlins, 12 games ahead of the Philadelphia Phillies, and 18.5 games ahead of the New York fucking Mets and the Washington Nationals, who are, this is like the least surprising thing about the National League East. They're 24 games back. Nobody expected the Nationals to do shit after trading Juan Soto, Trey Turner last year. They weren't expected to do a lot. So they're not, they did win, or they lost. The Braves and the Marlins are the teams that won. The Brewers, actually beat the Phillies for us last night, so that was helpful. But we still got to watch out because, they get in that wild card. They can still beat us. The Brewers are a 1.5 games over the Reds in the National League Central despite losing 2 to the Braves. They still won 7 of the last 10, which to me makes this Braves series win even more impressive because you did it against a really pretty damn good team. What, third best team in the National League? The Braves, 64-34. The Dodgers, 4 games up now. And the American League West are 57-42. And the Brewers, 56-45. The Reds have kind of cooled off a little bit after a hot run. But they've still been winning some games. So they're only 1.5 games behind the Brewers. Pittsburgh's been sad because they could do something. Of course, it didn't help when you lose your guy that, your O'Neal Cruz, your star shortstop. They've lost 7 of their last 10. Cardinals have won 7 of the last 10. So that's one way they've been able to pass Pittsburgh, get out of that last place spot. Talk about the Dodgers being 4 games up on the Diamondbacks and the Giants. Padres still look like they might start doing something. All the money they spent, all the talent they got. They are 10 games out of first place. They've lost 6 of the last 10. Not good news for Padres. And the team I like the most. The team I wanted to see win the West. And The Dodgers were supposed to be the team that won the West, and they had been behind the Diamondbacks for a lot of this season. The Diamondbacks kind of slowing down. They've lost 8 of their last 10. They're on a 5-game losing streak. The Giants on a 6-game losing streak. The Dodgers have lost 2 in a row, but they've won 6 of the last 10. The Cubs on a 3-game winning streak, so they're trying to catch up there in the Central. They're 7 games behind the Brewers. Time to make that up for sure. The Orioles right now, the second best team in baseball after the Braves. They're 62-38, won 3 in a row and 7 of their last 10. They're 2.5 ahead of the Tampa Bay Rays, who have lost 7 of their last 10. So coming back down to earth after all that 30-9 start where they were just tearing it up. So good job, Orioles, man. I got a friend who's an Orioles fan. I'm definitely not hating on the Orioles. They had Brooks Robinson and of course, Frank Robinson, the legendary Major League Baseball player. And now at least first place in the American League Central is ahead of the last 2 teams in the American League East. I don't know if that's happened this year. They've been ahead of one of the teams, but Minnesota is first place, 4 games up on Cleveland. They've won 4 in a row. The Yankees have won 3 in a row, but they're still last place in the American League East. Losing Aaron Judge, it feels like it's really hurt them, but they've lost 6 of their last 10. Boston coming into their series against the Braves, they're 9 games out of first in their division, but they've won 2 in a row. They've won 6 of their last 10, just like one of the teams they're trying to catch, the Toronto Blue Jays. So the Red Sox ain't no scrubs, but this feels like a series the Braves should win, which means they got to sweep it because it's only 2 games. You can't, you either split it or you win it. There's no in between. A split or sweep. And let's see, some other teams. The White Sox surprised on a 3-game losing streak. They've lost 7 of their last 10, falling further and further back in the American League Central. I mean, they won't end up last place, but they're last place among the teams that count, I guess, because the Royals are just terrible. 25 out. They've only won 29 games. In the West, the Rangers are still first place, despite just losing in a walk-off to the Astros. Both teams have won 7 of their last 10, so that'll be a battle to watch. And then the Angels, 7.5 out of first. Most people thinking Shohei not going to get traded just because you're really going to get value. And they're still in there, man. They're definitely in the wild card race. And 7.5 can be made up for in this stretch of games in the season. And they've won 6 of their last 10. The Mariners have lost 2 in a row. Right when I think the Mariners are about to go on a tear, they just kind of level out. They're 5-5 their last 10, 50-50 on the season. So a lot of 5s. 500 right now, 8.5 out. Not looking good for them. It'd be great to see Shohei go there in the offseason. Him and Julio Rodriguez. What a team. And let's look at the wild card standings really quick. Right now, the wild card teams in the American League would be Tampa, Houston, and Toronto. Boston and New York are 2.5 out there. In the National League, you got Cincinnati. And then Arizona, Miami, and San Francisco are all 3 tied. So one of them is going to be out. But Philadelphia, only half a game out. Cubs, 5 out. The Padres, much as they struggled, are 6 out. And even the Mets, they ain't going to catch us. But they could catch the Giants, the Diamondbacks, potentially the Marlins. That would take a little extra. But they're only 9 games out of that last wild card spot. So even they got to be someone you watch on. And even Pittsburgh, 9.5. These are not insurmountable. Cardinals still within reach. But the Phillies been right there, and especially after last year in 1993. When the Phillies, despite us winning the division, having a great record, we just get beat in the playoffs by a wild card division rival. And hopefully we won't see that happen. And of course, NFL training camp underway. I'll try to talk more about the NFL. There's just been so much going on with baseball. It's tough to work in football because there's not been much happening. It's just practice kind of stuff. But definitely, I feel like the Panthers got a chance to make some noise. Not saying they're going to win a Super Bowl, but we could damn sure win the division because the NFC South is wide the fuck open. No Breeze, no Brady. Derek Carr's a good quarterback, but I feel like he's never really shown he's great. He's with the Saints, of course. I think the Bucks have some guy, I can't remember his name, competing with Baker Mayfield. And, of course, the Falcons, a couple years removed from Matt Ryan. Desmond Ritter took over from Marcus Mariota last year and showed a lot of promise. Not getting a lot of credit sometimes, but even coming out of Cincinnati, a lot of people said he could end up being the best quarterback in that draft. It was just going to take a second. He's just not like a spectacular kind of guy. He just doesn't stand out, but like he has the stats, man. He seems to have he seems to have a lot of potential. But like I said, wide open in the South. I'm going to get out of here, though, man. I hope y'all have a great day. Check in tomorrow. We will be talking about Game 1 of this Braves and Red Sox series. Having said all that, peace out.